The Buddha taught us that karma is created through what we do, what we say, and what we intentionally keep in the mind. But usually, when we hear the word karma, we think about the past. Something unpleasant happens, and right away we say, maybe this is my old karma. We are very interested in the karma that is coming back to us, but the karma we are creating today, that one, sometimes we do not notice. For example, somebody says one sentence we do not like. They say it once, but we take that sentence home. We repeat it while driving. We repeat it while eating. At night, we lie down, and we repeat it one more time. The other person may have forgotten the whole thing already, but we are still holding a meeting with them inside our mind. Do we do that sometimes? So the question is not only, what karma did I create before? The question we really need to look at is, what karma am I creating today? Because the Buddha taught about 3 doors through which karma is made: the body, speech, and the mind. Now let us begin with something many people misunderstand. Karma is not punishment. Many people imagine karma as if somebody is sitting somewhere writing down every little thing. You did one good thing, 1 point. You did one bad thing, -2 points. Then something unpleasant happens and we say, see, I am being punished. But that is not how the Buddha explained karma. In Buddhist teaching, intention is at the heart of karma. There is an intention in the mind, then the body acts, the mouth speaks, or the mind keeps holding and feeding that intention. Once we act with intention, we create a cause. When we repeat that cause, the condition becomes stronger. Then the karma becomes deeper. You see, one angry reaction does not need to become our whole personality. But if every time something goes wrong, anger is the road we choose, that road becomes very easy to walk. Suppose somebody cuts in front of us while we are driving. Immediately, anger comes up. The other driver may not even know. Maybe they are already 3 streets away, but we are still in the car, talking to them. They cannot hear us. Only the person sitting beside us can hear us. And now that person has to receive the anger created by somebody who is no longer there. Then we arrive home and wonder, why is everybody so quiet? Maybe everybody is waiting for the storm to pass. This is how karma operates in daily life. The other driver acted carelessly. That belongs to their action. But what happens next inside us? That becomes our responsibility. We cannot control every condition that comes to us. We cannot decide how everybody speaks. We cannot stop every careless driver. But once the condition arrives, our intention begins moving. Then we have to look. What are we adding to this condition? Are we adding anger? Are we adding understanding? Are we adding another cause for suffering? Karma is not a God punishing us. It is cause, condition, intention, action, and result. If we repeatedly respond to irritation with anger, anger becomes easier. If we repeatedly pause and respond with patience, patience also becomes easier. Both are karma. Both are creating a direction. So Buddhist practice is not about becoming afraid of every mistake. Some people make one mistake and think, that is it, my whole life is ruined. No. If one mistake destroyed the whole path, none of us could practice. The Buddha taught a path because transformation is possible. We can recognize an unwholesome action. We can stop feeding the condition that created it. We can repair what we damaged. Then we can begin creating a different cause. The old action may still have consequences. We should not pretend it never happened, but we do not have to repeat it. Imagine a cup of salty water. If we keep adding salt, the water becomes harder to drink. But if we stop adding salt and slowly add fresh water, the taste begins to change. Our life is like that. Maybe we cannot remove every old cause immediately, but today we can stop creating the same cause again. So instead of spending all our time wondering about karma from 10 years ago, or 10 lives ago, look at what the body is doing right now. Because when intention enters the body, it becomes visible. It begins touching people, animals, families, and the conditions around us. The Buddha explained 3 major ways the body creates unwholesome karma: taking life, taking what is not freely given, and misusing sexuality in a way that creates suffering. Now somebody hears this and says, well, I have never killed anybody. I have never robbed a bank. I think I am doing very well maybe. But the practice asks us to look a little more carefully. Taking life does not begin only with a dramatic act. It begins when the suffering of another living being no longer matters to us. Suppose somebody catches a fish only for entertainment. They do not need the fish for food. They pull it from the water. They take a picture. They laugh. Then they say, "Do not worry, I will release it," but while we are enjoying ourselves, the fish is struggling to breathe. Now, if somebody held our head underwater for a photograph, we probably would not call that entertainment, would we? The deeper practice is not only, do not kill. The deeper practice is, do not keep creating conditions that make the heart comfortable with suffering. Every time we ignore suffering, the heart becomes a little harder. Every time we protect life, the heart becomes a little softer. That is also karma. Then there is taking what is not given. Again, we may say, "I am not a thief," but suppose somebody transfers money to us by mistake. We see the notification, we know the money is not ours. Then the mind starts negotiating. Maybe this is a blessing. No, a blessing usually does not arrive with somebody else's name on it. If we clearly know something does not belong to us, but we quietly keep it, the body is following greed. The amount may be small, but the condition being created is not small. We are teaching ourselves that personal benefit is more important than honesty. And when that condition is repeated, the karma becomes stronger. The third area is sexual misconduct. This is not only about following a rule, it is about responsibility. Does our desire create betrayal? Does it break trust? Does it create fear, secrecy, or suffering for another family? Sometimes people say, "We are only talking," but they delete every message. They hide the phone. They become nervous when their husband or wife enters the room, if there is truly nothing to hide. Why does the phone suddenly need a password stronger than the bank? We laugh. But the body usually follows a direction that the mind has been preparing for some time, before an action becomes visible. Attachment has already been creating conditions. The mind says, "Just this once, nobody will know, it is not serious. I deserve this." These sentences are not harmless, they are conditions. And when the conditions become strong enough, the body acts. This is why we should not wait until the family is broken before becoming mindful. We need to look at the small permission being repeated inside us. When we examine body karma, the question is not only, have I committed some terrible act? Look more closely. What kind of action am I making easier through repetition? Am I becoming gentler with life? Am I becoming more honest with what belongs to others? Am I protecting the trust people place in me? Every bodily action leaves something behind. It leaves a result in the world. It leaves an impression in another person, and it leaves a habit inside us. But many times, the body does not need to move very far before suffering begins. Sometimes one sentence is enough. Speech karma is very close to us. Maybe the body does not do anything serious today, but the mouth can work from morning until night. And sometimes, you see, the mouth works overtime. The Buddha explained 4 ways speech commonly creates suffering: speaking what is not true, speaking in a way that divides people, speaking cruelly, and speaking carelessly, without benefit. First, speaking what is not true. We usually imagine a lie as a big invented story, but many lies are very small. Somebody asks, "Did you say that?" And we answer, "No, I do not remember." We remember. We remember very clearly. We even remember where we were sitting. But suddenly, the memory has gone somewhere. Why? Because the truth may make us uncomfortable, so the mouth begins protecting the image we have of ourselves. There is intention, then there is speech, then a cause is created. Now, divisive speech. This is when we carry one person's words to another person, not to create understanding, but to create distance. We say, "I am only telling you because I care." Sometimes we care so much we tell 3 more people before lunch. Have you noticed that? We go to one person and say, "You know what she said about you?" Then we go back to the other person. You know how he reacted? Now the fire has 2 houses, and we are walking between them, carrying more conditions for the fire, but still saying we want peace. If words help 2 people understand one another, that speech has value. But if our words make 2 people suspicious, angry, or divided, we need to examine the intention. Why am I saying this? Am I trying to help, Or am I enjoying the excitement of being the person who knows? Then there is cruel speech. Cruel speech is not always shouting. Sometimes it is one calm sentence. A parent says to a child, "Why can you never be like your brother?" The parent may forget that sentence 5 minutes later. The child may carry it for 15 years. A husband says, "You are too sensitive." A wife says, "You never do anything right." Maybe both are tired. Maybe both are angry. But tiredness does not remove the wound. Words enter the mind when the same words are repeated. The condition becomes deeper. Then people begin to believe the words spoken to them. This is why loving speech is not decoration. It protects the other person. And it also protects us from becoming someone whose mouth creates fear. Now, careless and useless speech does not mean we can never joke or talk about ordinary things. The Buddha was not telling us to sit at the dinner table in complete silence, looking at the rice. The question is, what does this speech create? Does it bring understanding? Does it bring relief? Or does it create more agitation? Sometimes we repeat a rumor we do not even know is true. We say, "I heard this from somebody who I cannot say." Then maybe it is better not to say anything, because once words leave the mouth, we cannot control where they go. A message is forwarded. A screenshot is taken. A private sentence becomes a family discussion. Then everybody says, "Please do not tell anyone." By that time, everyone already knows. Speech karma moves quickly. The body may perform one action in one place, but one sentence can enter many minds. It can continue creating consequences long after we have forgotten saying it. So before speaking, look at 3 things. Is it true? Is it beneficial? Is this the right time? Something may be true, but if we say it only to embarrass someone, the intention is not wholesome. Something may be useful. But if the other person is angry and unable to listen, perhaps the condition is not ready, and sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the moment when we refuse to let suffering travel through us. But the mouth is not working alone, you see. Before the sentence comes out, something has already been moving in the mind. A judgment, a fear, a desire, an old resentment. The mouth gives sound to what the mind has been feeding. Mind karma is more difficult to see. The body acts, people can see it. The mouth speaks, people can hear it. But the mind can create a whole storm while the body is sitting quietly. Our face looks peaceful, maybe our hands are even folded, but inside we have already argued with 3 people, and we won every argument. Of course we won. Inside our own mind, we write both sides of the conversation. Have you noticed that? The Buddha explained 3 unwholesome roots that often move the mind: greed, anger, and delusion. Now, greed does not only mean wanting a lot of money. Greed is the mind that is unable to feel. This is enough. We have one phone. It works perfectly. Then we see the new phone. Suddenly, the old phone becomes a serious problem. Yesterday, no suffering. Today, much suffering. What changed? Not the phone. The condition of comparison entered the mind. We see somebody else's house, their job, their body, their family, their vacation, and the mind says, "Why not me?" There is nothing wrong with improving our life. There is nothing wrong with working hard. But when the mind can no longer appreciate what is already present, greed begins taking away our peace before anything new has even arrived. Then there is anger. Anger is interesting. Sometimes the event lasts only 1 minute, but the anger stays for 3 days. Somebody speaks harshly to us on Monday. By Wednesday, we are still answering them. They are not there, but we continue. We explain what they should have said. Then we explain what we should have said. Then we become angry because we did not say it. So now, we are suffering from the original sentence, and also from the better sentence we invented later. This is how one condition becomes stronger. The Buddha did not teach that one angry thought makes us a terrible person. Thoughts arise because conditions are present. Maybe we are tired. Maybe we are hurt. Maybe an old wound was touched. The important question is, what do we do next? Do we recognize the anger, or do we give it a chair, make it some tea, and ask it to stay for the weekend? One thought appears. That is not unusual. But if we keep repeating it, defending it, and searching for more reasons to believe it, then the anger becomes deeper, the condition becomes stronger. and slowly anger begins to feel familiar. Then there is delusion. Delusion means not seeing clearly, but this one is difficult, because when we do not see clearly, we usually do not know that we do not see clearly. We think we are completely right. Everybody else only needs to understand us. Sometimes we hear one side of a story and immediately decide who is good and who is bad. Sometimes we read one sentence online and become an expert before breakfast. Then somebody offers another view, and we become uncomfortable, not always because their view is wrong, but because it disturbs the story we already chose to believe. Greed says, "I need more." Anger says, "I need to hurt back." Delusion says, "I already understand everything," and when the mind believes that, it stops learning. So how do we practice with mind karma? First, do not become afraid of every thought. A thought is not a command. A feeling is not an instruction. Something can arise in the mind, and we do not have to follow it. We can notice greed and say, the mind is comparing again. We can notice anger. Anger is here. Let me not speak yet. We can notice confusion. Maybe I do not know the whole story. That small moment of awareness is very important. Before awareness, the mind simply reacts. After awareness, there is a little space. And in that space, we have a choice. We can keep feeding the old condition, or we can stop giving it more food. When we stop feeding a condition, the habit slowly becomes weaker. When we keep feeding it, the karma becomes stronger. This is why meditation is not only sitting quietly with the eyes closed. Meditation trains us to see what the mind is doing, before the mouth speaks and before the body follows. Because once the mind gives a direction, speech gives that direction sound. Then the body gives it form. And now, look at what happens when all three begin moving together. Now, look at what happens in a family. A mother calls her adult son. She says, "You have not called me for 3 days." Maybe she is not trying to criticize him. Maybe she simply misses him. But the son is already tired from work. So the moment he hears that sentence, his mind begins adding another meaning. "She is criticizing me again now." The mother said one sentence, but the son's mind has already created a whole story around it. That is where the condition begins. Then the mouth follows. He says, "I am busy. I cannot call you every day." The words may not sound terrible, but the tone is sharp. The mother hears the tone and she becomes hurt. Then she says, "Fine. From now on, do not call me at all." Of course, she does not really mean that if he does not call. She will look at the phone every 10 minutes, but in that moment, hurt is speaking. Then the son ends the call. He puts the phone down harder than necessary. Now the body has joined. One interpretation in the mind, one sharp sentence from the mouth, one action through the body. Then what happens? The mother sits there thinking, "My son does not care about me anymore." The son drives home, thinking, "My mother never understands how tired I am." Both are suffering, both feel misunderstood, and both are creating more conditions for the next argument. The next time they speak, the old hurt is already waiting. This is how karma becomes strong, not always through one terrible act. Sometimes it begins with tiredness, one misunderstanding, one tone of voice. But when nobody stops to look, the mind creates a story. The mouth speaks from that story. Then the body confirms it. And when the result comes back, the mind says, "See, I knew it." Have you noticed this in families? One person says, "You always speak to me like that." The other person says, "I only speak this way because you always behave like that." Then both people wait for the other person to change first. If both are waiting, suffering has found a very comfortable place to stay. This is why Buddhist practice begins by looking at our own door. Not because the other person is always right. Not because we must accept harmful behavior, but because we cannot purify another person's mind for them. We can only become aware of what is happening inside us. Maybe the mind is assuming too quickly. Maybe the mouth is speaking before understanding. Maybe the body is acting only to show anger. And if we can stop at any one of these doors, the whole cycle begins to change. Suppose the son notices his irritation before answering. He takes one breath. Then he says, "Mum, I am very tired today. I know you miss me. Let me call you properly tomorrow." The mother may still feel lonely. The son may still feel tired. But now a different condition has been created. The old karma is not being fed in the same way, you see. We often wait for a big spiritual moment to change our life. But karma usually changes in a very ordinary moment. One breath before speaking, one honest sentence, one hand that does not slam the door, one mind that does not immediately believe its first story. That is where the three doors begin moving in another direction. This is where practice becomes very real. It is easy to be patient with people we meet once a week. The people who live with us, they know exactly where our patience is weak, and we know theirs too. Sometimes somebody says, I take good care of my parents. Maybe that is true. They send money, they buy medicine, they pay the bills. Those are wholesome actions. But every time the mother calls, the voice becomes impatient. What is it now? The money arrives on time, but the peace does not. Providing money is not the same as providing peace. A parent may have food, medicine, and a warm house, but still feel afraid to ask the child one simple question. Why? Because every question is answered with irritation. Sometimes elderly parents repeat the same story. We have heard it many times. They begin again, and inside we say, oh no, not this story again, but when we were children. How many times did they answer the same question for us? We asked. Why? They answered. Then we asked again, why? And they answered again. At that time our repetition was called cute. Now their repetition is called annoying. Have we noticed that? But caring for parents does not mean agreeing with everything. Parents also need to look at the way they speak to their children. A mother may say, I worry because I love you. That may be true, but if every phone call becomes pressure, criticism or comparison, the child may begin avoiding the call. Then the mother says, my child does not care about me. Perhaps the child is not avoiding the mother. Perhaps the child is avoiding the suffering created in every conversation. Love is present, but understanding is missing. And when understanding is missing, love can become heavy. Parents may ask adult children to visit often without considering their work, their health, the distance or the responsibilities they already carry. The children stay silent because they are afraid of being called ungrateful. Then resentment grows quietly. Nobody says it directly. Everybody still says we are family, but inside each person is keeping a list. Family karma does not always become strong because people do not love one another. Often, they love one another very much, but the conditions of control, guilt, anger, and expectation keep getting repeated. So filial care is not only what we give, it is also how people feel when they receive it. Do our parents feel respected? Do they feel safe speaking to us? Do we make them feel like a burden? And parents can also ask, do my children feel trusted? Do I understand their circumstances? Am I using sacrifice from the past to control them in the present? Buddhist practice does not only ask, who is right, it asks, what suffering are we creating together? Sometimes one gentle sentence changes the whole condition. A son can say, Mom, I cannot talk long right now, but I will call you tonight. A mother can say, I miss you, but I understand that you are busy. A husband can say, I am upset, but I do not want to hurt you. A wife can say, let us speak when the mind is cooler. These sentences are simple, but they create different causes. They do not erase every old wound. They do not solve every family problem in one day. But they stop adding the same condition again. And that matters because in a family, karma may be created through one tone of voice, one look, one phone call, one sentence that makes another person feel safe or small. So when we say, I love my family, we should also look at the causes we are creating around that love. Is our love helping people breathe more easily, or is our love becoming another form of pressure? Sometimes the intention is good, but the way we express it still creates suffering. That is why love also needs wisdom. And wisdom begins when we are willing to look at our own part before asking everybody else to change. There is another condition we need to look at carefully. Somebody else is suffering and somehow we feel happy. Maybe we do not say it aloud, but inside the mind says, good, they deserve it. Have we ever felt that? Somebody who hurt us loses a job. Somebody who insulted us has trouble in the family. Someone who once looked down on us suddenly fails. And immediately, The mind becomes very interested in karma. We say, "See, karma came quickly," but let us be honest at that moment. Are we really studying karma, or are we enjoying their pain? Those are not the same thing. The Buddha taught compassion because suffering is already everywhere. We do not need to add our happiness to another person's pain. Now, this does not mean harmful actions have no consequences. Cause and effect still operate. People may have to face the results of what they do, but their consequence is their lesson. Our reaction is our karma. This is the part we often forget. We watch a video of somebody falling. We laugh. We watch people fighting in public. We keep watching. Sometimes we send the video to somebody else and say, "Look at this." Then one person's painful moment becomes entertainment for thousands of people. Maybe that person made a mistake. Maybe they behaved badly. But if their suffering makes our heart harder, then we are also losing something. Compassion does not mean approving of every action. Does not mean allowing people to continue hurting us. We can set boundaries. We can walk away. We can report harmful behavior. We can say no, but we do not need hatred in order to protect ourselves. Some people think if I stop being angry, they win. No, if we stop carrying anger, suffering loses one place to live. The other person may still need to change, but their action no longer continues shaping our mind every day. Sometimes we wait for karma to punish somebody. We check their life, we hear bad news, and the mind feels relieved. Then the next day we check again. We say we have moved on, but apparently, part of the mind is still working in the department of their consequences. Do we do that sometimes? The mind may begin with a wish for justice, but if we are not careful, that wish slowly becomes revenge. Then compassion becomes very small. So when somebody who hurt us is suffering, we can remind ourselves, this person is also living inside causes and conditions. That does not excuse what they did. It simply prevents hatred from becoming our next action. We can understand and still keep our distance. We can forgive and still not return. We can wish them wisdom without giving them another chance to harm us. That is not weakness. That is compassion with understanding. Because the moment another person's suffering becomes our entertainment, our own compassion has already been wounded. And if we want to purify karma, we must learn not only to stop harmful actions, but also to stop feeding the mind that enjoys harm. If karma is created through intention, conditions, and repetition, then how do we change it? Many people want to change immediately. They say, "From today, I will never be angry again." It sounds very beautiful. Then somebody says one irritating thing, and the new life ends before lunchtime. Have we experienced that? It does not mean we are hopeless. It means the old habit already has momentum. We have created that condition many times. We have walked down that road many times. So when something happens, the mind knows exactly where to go. That is why karma usually does not change through one emotional promise. It changes through small, clear actions, repeated in another direction. First, recognize what is happening. Suppose anger is rising before we simply became angry. Now we notice, anger is here. That recognition already changes the condition. We are no longer completely lost inside the anger. We can see it. And when we can see it, there is a little space. Then pause, maybe only for one breath. Do not underestimate one breath. One breath can protect a relationship. Many words create suffering only because they leave the mouth too quickly. We say them, then 5 minutes later, we want them back. But words do not return because we regret them. So when the mind is hot, let the mouth rest and let the phone rest too. Do not type the long message yet. Especially the message that begins, "I have been meaning to tell you this for a long time." That message can wait. Because when anger is writing, wisdom is usually not holding the phone then. Repair what we have done. Some people think spiritual practice means never making a mistake. No. Practice also means knowing what to do after a mistake. If we spoke harshly, we can apologize, but not, "I am sorry you were offended." That is not really an apology. We can say, "I spoke in a hurtful way. That was wrong." If we repeated a rumor, we can correct it. If we took something that was not ours, we can return it. If we broke trust, we need to understand that rebuilding trust may take time. An apology is important. But an apology does not force another person to trust us immediately. The result of an action still has to be respected, so we repair what we can, and then we continue creating better conditions. After that, repeat the new action. This is where transformation becomes real. One patient response is wholesome, but patience becomes stronger when we practice it again. One honest sentence is wholesome, but honesty becomes part of us when we choose it. Even when lying would be easier, one act of generosity is wholesome, but generosity becomes a path when we remember other people regularly. You see, the same principle that allowed an unwholesome habit to grow also allows a wholesome habit to grow. That is why karma is not hopeless when we stop feeding an old condition. The habit slowly becomes weaker. When we repeatedly create a new condition, a different path becomes stronger. At first, pausing before speaking may feel unnatural. Later, the pause comes more easily. At first, apologizing may feel very difficult. Later, protecting the relationship becomes more important than protecting our pride. Imagine walking through grass in the same direction every day. After some time, a path appears. If we stop walking there, the path does not disappear immediately. But if we begin walking in another direction, a new path slowly forms. The old path becomes less clear. The new path becomes easier to follow. Our habits are like that, so do not ask only, how can I erase all my old karma? That question may be too large. Ask something closer. What wholesome karma can I practice today? One action, one sentence, one thought that we choose not to feed, that is enough to begin. And because the mind forgets easily, the Buddha gave us supports, so that when we lose our direction, we know where to return. The Buddha gave us supports, because wanting to change is not always enough. We may sincerely want to be peaceful, but when anger comes, we forget we may want to speak honestly. But when the truth becomes uncomfortable, the mind begins looking for another version. So in Buddhism, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Now, taking refuge does not mean running away from life. It means choosing a direction. To take refuge in the Buddha is to return to awakening. The Buddha is not someone we ask to approve every decision we already made. Sometimes we already know the decision is not wise. But we still say, Buddha, please bless this plan. The Buddha may be very compassionate, but an unwise cause does not become wise just because we bow before it. To return to the Buddha means asking, can I see this more clearly? Can I respond with more understanding? Can I wake up before this intention becomes an action? Then we take refuge in the Dharma. The Dharma is truth, and the path that leads us out of suffering. It is not something we listen to only because the voice is calming. Sometimes people play a Dharma talk before sleeping. 5 minutes later, they are asleep. The next morning they say, that was a wonderful teaching. What did the teacher say? I do not know, but I slept very well. Sleeping peacefully is not bad, but the Dharma is not only there to help us relax. The Dharma helps us see which causes create suffering, which conditions keep suffering alive, and what we must stop feeding. Then we take refuge in the Sangha. The Sangha reminds us that practice is difficult to sustain alone. The people around us become conditions in our life. If everybody around us enjoys anger, gossip, greed, and blame after some time, those things begin to look normal. But when we stay close to people who practice patience, honesty, and compassion, those qualities also become easier to remember. We become conditions for one another. And then there are the 5 precepts. The precepts are not 5 threats. They are 5 forms of protection. Not taking life protects compassion. Not taking what is not given protects honesty and trust. Not misusing sexuality protects families and relationships. Not speaking falsely protects understanding. And avoiding intoxicants protects awareness. The Buddha did not give the precepts because he wanted to control us. He gave them because an unguarded body, an unguarded mouth, and an unguarded mind can create suffering very quickly. The precepts help us stop before the karma becomes heavier. Now, maybe we cannot keep everything perfectly. We make a mistake. We become careless. We wander from the direction. Then what do? We return. That is practice. Practice does not mean pretending we never wandered. It means knowing where to return. Again and again, return to awareness, return to truth, return to wholesome conditions. The 3 refuges give us direction. The 5 precepts help that direction enter the body, the mouth and the mind. But all of this cannot remain only inside a temple, because the real test comes when we go home. When somebody is tired, the dishes are waiting, and nobody feels like being patient. Sometimes we are very peaceful at the temple. Everybody is quiet. The bell sounds. The incense smells good. Nobody is asking us to take out the trash. So naturally we feel very spiritual. Then we go home. There are dishes in the sink. Somebody left the lights on. The children are making noise. Our husband or wife asks one question at exactly the wrong moment, and all the peace we collected at the temple is gone before we take off our shoes. Have we experienced that? The temple gives us a place to learn, but the home gives us a place to practice. The Buddha taught us to develop a mind that sees suffering and wants to help relieve it. We call that bodhicitta. Now, when people hear the word bodhicitta, they may imagine something very great, saving all living beings, making a great vow, doing something extraordinary. Those things are beautiful, but bodhicitta also begins in very ordinary places. We come home and see that somebody is tired. We do not wait for them to ask. We help, we see the dishes, we wash a few. We see that the trash is full, we take it outside. Do not stand beside the trash and announce, "The trash is full." The trash already knows. The question is, who is going to take it outside? Sometimes we see the work very clearly, but only clearly enough to tell another person to do it. Bodhicitta means we see a difficulty and ask, what can I do to reduce this suffering? It does not always require a great sacrifice. Sometimes it is 10 minutes of help. Sometimes it is one patient answer. Sometimes it is allowing another person to rest without making them feel guilty. Suppose a husband comes home tired. He sees that his wife is also tired. The mind immediately says, "I worked all day." That may be true, but perhaps she also worked all day. Maybe not at the same job, maybe not in the same way, but suffering does not need to be compared before it can be understood. If both people stand there proving who is more tired, the house remains dirty, and now 2 people are also angry. One person can say, "You rest for a little while. I will do this part." That sentence creates another condition in the home. Then later, the other person may naturally want to help too. Wholesome karma can spread through example, not through pressure. Parents also practice bodhicitta by learning how to listen. Sometimes a child comes home upset. The parent immediately begins giving advice. "You should have done this. You should not have said that. Next time, listen to me." Maybe the advice is correct, but the child has not finished speaking. So before giving the teaching, perhaps we can listen. We can ask, "What happened? How did you feel? What do you need right now?" Listening does not mean agreeing with everything. It gives the other person enough space for the mind to become calmer. When the mind becomes calmer, wisdom can enter. But when the mind is already full of pain, and we keep adding advice, there is no room left. Sometimes we want to help so quickly that the other person feels even more alone. So bodhicitta needs compassion, but it also needs understanding. We do not help only in the way we prefer. We look at what is actually needed. The same is true with elderly parents. Maybe they do not need another object. Maybe they do not need more food. Maybe the refrigerator is already full. Sometimes what they need is 20 minutes without feeling that they are disturbing us. They want to tell one old story. Yes, we have heard it before, but perhaps they are not telling the story only to give us information. Perhaps that memory still gives them warmth. When we understand that, we listen differently. Our face changes, our voice changes. The body becomes less impatient. Body, speech, and mind begin moving together in a more wholesome direction. Now, helping at home does not mean allowing everybody to use us. Bodhicitta is not the same as having no boundaries. If we do everything for everyone and then become resentful, that is not peaceful practice. We can help and still speak. Honestly, we can say, "I can help with this, but I cannot do all of it." We can say, "I need some rest too." We can ask other people to share responsibility. Compassion must include ourselves, otherwise, what we call compassion may slowly become exhaustion. Then one day we explode. We say things we have been holding for 6 months. Everybody is shocked. We are shocked too, we say. I do not know where that came from. It came from 6 months of silence, without understanding. So practice means helping with awareness. Speaking before resentment becomes too strong. Listening before misunderstanding becomes too deep. And doing wholesome actions, without always waiting to be praised. Sometimes we wash the dishes. Nobody says, "Thank you," then the mind begins making an announcement apparently. "I am the only person who does anything in this house." Now one good action has invited anger to sit beside it. Have we done that? We help. But inside we are keeping a receipt. Later, during an argument, we bring out every receipt. I did this. I did that. Nobody appreciates me. So even while doing something good, we still need to look at the intention. Are we helping to relieve suffering? Or are we helping so that people will owe us something? This does not mean appreciation is unimportant. People should learn to thank one another. But our peace cannot depend on being praised every time we do something wholesome. Sometimes the practice is simply knowing. This needed to be done, and I was able to help. That is enough. Bodhicitta begins when we notice suffering nearby, and do not walk past it as if it belongs only to somebody else. It begins in the kitchen, in the car during a phone call, beside an elderly parent, beside a child who does not know how to explain what is wrong. The body can help instead of harm. The mouth can comfort instead of wound. The mind can understand instead of judging immediately. This is how we purify karma in daily life, not only by bowing before the Buddha, but by allowing the Buddha's teaching to enter the way we live at home. Now, after hearing about body karma, speech karma, and mind karma, somebody may say, "This is a lot to remember." That is true if we try to examine every thought, every sentence, and every action from morning until night. We may become tired before breakfast. So the practice can begin very simply at the end of each day. Take a few quiet minutes and look back, not to judge yourself, not to frighten yourself with karma, and not to make a long list of everything you did wrong. Just look. First, look at the body. What did the body do today? Did it help anybody? Did it cause harm? Did it act from anger, carelessness, greed, or compassion? Maybe the body did something wholesome. You carried something for an elderly person. You returned something that did not belong to you. You cleaned a space without waiting to be asked. Maybe anger came up, but you stopped the body from acting. Recognize that too. Sometimes we only notice our mistakes. Then every evening becomes a meeting where the mind complains about itself. That is not mindfulness. That is another condition for suffering. We need to recognize the wholesome causes too. Because whatever we recognize clearly, we can continue strengthening. Then look at speech. What did the mouth say today? Was there one sentence that brought peace? Was there one sentence that made another person become quiet? Now, people become quiet for different reasons. Sometimes they become quiet because they understand us. Sometimes they become quiet because our words hurt them, and they no longer feel safe speaking. Those are not the same silence, so we look carefully. Did we tell the truth? Did we exaggerate? Did we carry one person's words to another person? Did we speak because it was helpful, or because the mind wanted attention? Maybe we made a mistake, then recognize it. No need to sit there punishing ourselves for 2 hours. Perhaps tomorrow we need to apologize. Perhaps we need to correct something we said. Perhaps we simply need to stop repeating the story. Then look at the mind. What did the mind keep holding today? Was it comparing? Was it angry? Was it planning how to make somebody feel guilty? Was it worrying about something that had not happened? The mind is very talented. It can suffer from yesterday and worry about tomorrow, while completely missing today. Sometimes the body is sitting safely at home, but the mind has already traveled through 10 disasters. Nothing has happened yet. But inside, we have prepared for all 10. Have we noticed that? So we simply say, today the mind was doing that. No need to hate the mind. The mind follows conditions. Our practice is to understand those conditions. Maybe anger became stronger because we were tired. Maybe greed became stronger after too much comparison online. Maybe speech became careless because we stayed too long in a conversation built around gossip. When we understand the condition, we can begin changing the condition. Go to sleep earlier. Put the phone down. Leave the conversation. Take one breath before answering. Spend more time with people who help us see clearly. These are also forms of practice. Then choose one thing for tomorrow, only one. Do not make 20 promises. 20 promises sound very spiritual at night, but in the morning, we cannot remember any of them. Choose one clear practice tomorrow. I will not answer immediately when I am angry. Tomorrow I will call my parent and listen without rushing. Tomorrow I will not repeat that story again. Tomorrow, when comparison appears, I will return to gratitude. One clear practice is better than many beautiful intentions. Then remember one wholesome action from the day. Maybe it was very small. You listened, you smiled, you returned something, you chose not to speak. You noticed anger before it became an action. Not underestimate that moment. A wholesome path is also created from small steps. The unwholesome habit did not become strong in one day. The wholesome habit also needs time. So each evening we look back. Each morning we begin again. Not because yesterday did not matter, but because today brings another condition. And every new condition gives us another opportunity to stop feeding the old karma and begin strengthening a different path. So before we finish, let us return to the 3 doors, the body, speech, and the mind every day. These 3 doors are open. Through them we can create suffering, but through the same 3 doors, we can also create peace. Maybe today the body acted carelessly. Maybe the mouth said something that hurt another person. Maybe the mind held on to anger much longer than necessary. Do not use this teaching to condemn yourself. Use it to wake up. The Buddha did not teach karma so that we would become frightened of life. He taught karma so that we would understand. Our actions matter, our words matter, and the thoughts we continue feeding also matter. Yes, old causes may still bring results. We cannot change everything that has already happened. But right now, we are also creating new causes, new conditions, and a new direction. That is where freedom begins. Maybe tonight there is one person we need to apologize to. Maybe there is one story we need to stop repeating. Maybe there is one resentment we have carried for so long we no longer remember why we are still feeding it. Sometimes we say, I cannot let it go. But look carefully. Have we stopped feeding it? Whatever we keep feeding becomes stronger. So today, feed something different. Let the body do one kind thing. Let the mouth say one gentle sentence. Let the mind stop following one thought that has been creating suffering, only one. Do not wait until tomorrow to become a completely different person. Tomorrow may come, and we may still be very much the same person. That is all right. Practice begins with one different choice, then another, then another. Little by little, the old condition becomes weaker, the old habit loses strength, and a new path begins to appear. So the question is no longer only, what karma did I bring from the past? The more important question is, what karma am I strengthening now? Because the future is not created only by what once happened to us, it is also created by the causes we choose to repeat today. May our bodies become instruments of compassion. May our speech bring understanding. May our minds become clearer and more peaceful. And may the karma we create from this moment forward lead ourselves and the people around us away from suffering and closer to freedom.